Thank you very much for these kind words, but first of all, thank you, Klaus Töpfer, for inviting me to this very special occasion, the first Global Soil Week of the Institute for Advanced Studies in Sustainability Sciences. As the former Minister of the Environment and also together with the former President of our Umweltbundesamt, our Environmental Protection Agency, Heinrich von Lersner, you really pushed the question of soil, particularly of soil protection, ahead. And as a matter of fact, Germany, in this context, was one of the first countries to actually establish a national soil protection law, which was formally implemented by your successor, Angela Merkel, who is now the Chancellor of Germany. So maybe there is another way to attract this topic on the respective level. As a soil scientist, I have served on various soil and environment-related advisory boards. The reason for my appreciation of particularly soil protection is simply a scientifically well-balanced but also practically applicable concept, namely that of soil functions. In this context, we have defined three major soil functions: the production function, the habitat function, and the regulatory function. This modern concept has the remarkable advantage that it can be utilized for all soil types. From this point of view, it does not matter in what specific stage of development these soils are, whether they are younger pot soils, older pot soils, or younger alluvial soils, whether they are more organic soils or mineral soils, or even soils in urban areas. Hence, this concept is not static. It takes the development of soils adequately into account. By way of this concept, it is also possible to define the necessity for soil rehabilitation, namely if one or more of these functions is not fulfilled as it should be fulfilled. The problem, however, that we have in Germany with our soil protection legislation is that it does not apply directly to all soils, particularly not to soils under good agricultural or forestry practice, which represent, of course, the large majority of our soils. So there exists room for improvement, but the concept as such already exists. A further problem is that on a European scale, we do not have any relevant soil-specific regulations. Rather, there exists a large number of regulations that have impact on soil, particularly on soil quality. There was, however, a very well substantiated approach to establish an EU soil framework directive. But this approach was not acknowledged by the EU, as various nations, unfortunately also Germany, would not agree to this regulation. The reason for this development was and is that soil, other than maybe air or water or even biodiversity, generally represents property. That means soils belong to somebody, to some specific person, organization, institution. Hence, it would be a great success if this newly established Global Soil Forum and the respective Global Soil Weeks would eventually lead to a better understanding and acceptance of this, in my eyes, absolutely necessary approach. When we talk about soils, particularly in the context of soil fertility, but also in the context of soil protection, we have to realize that soils are not static, but continuously developing systems, of course influenced by a large number of soil development factors, such as parent material, climate, vegetation, and of course also by other factors, but of course by the impact of man, particularly related to the various land use practices, often unfortunately leading to soil degradation, including soil erosion and soil compaction. Another significant impact concerns infrastructure measures and soil sealing. To better understand the prevailing soil status and their respective dynamics, innovative soil monitoring technologies are necessary, trying to successfully bridge all relevant time and space scales, finally leading to a much better utilization of, for instance, remote and even satellite-based observation tools, at the GFZ, we are just developing one of these modern approaches with a hyperspectral satellite mission, allowing for environmental monitoring on a new level. Soils are a limited resource. This undisputable fact can best be seen from the situation that soils, as any limited resource, have become objects for specific financial investment concepts or tools. This rather new situation can also be learned from land grabbing. We have just seen it in this wonderful movie. This means that nations that would not have enough fertile or productive soils to support or particularly to nourish their own population are now grabbing for productive land in other regions, for example, in Africa, Australia, or even Latin America. It is not just the dynamic growth of our human population, soon reaching 9 billion consumers with an ever-increasing appetite for food, particularly for meat. There are new demands for biomass, such as biofuels, but also for replacing crude oil by biomass, particularly, for instance, in the chemical industry. The significantly increased demand for biomass calls for improved soil productivity. This implies the prerequisite that soils, particularly degraded soils, can be returned to sustainable productivity, and that maybe marginal soils can be improved to become sufficiently fertile, at least for some soil utilization options. And all these aspects have to face yet another demanding challenge, that of global climate change. As indicated above, climate is an important soil development factor, and as climate change means regionally specific effects, there exists no approach in the context one size fits all. From this situation, for example, the question arises, which of our soils are CO2 sinks and which are CO2 sources? Well-reflected soil management also in this context is the key to integrate both climate protection concepts, mitigation and adaptation. And of course, under these new conditions, innovative research is necessary, particularly related to carbon budgets and related processes on the level of ecosystems and even landscapes. Reflecting these questions, root research, particularly of deeper soil layers, along with soil biology and soil microbiology, needs to be enhanced tremendously. From the geosciences, for instance, we have just learned that there exists a deep biosphere reaching down as far as maybe 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 meters into the ground, and that this deep biosphere consists probably of the same amount of biomass as is the case on the surface of our planet Earth. Soils are life. They live and we live from them. To cope with this challenge, there is only one solution: sustainable soil management, securing sustainable soil fertility. Thank you very much.